by then I was getting a little bit better at French. And in the bar at night, I was getting to be really quite elegant in French.
Wow.
And everything I'd say would be funny somehow, you know? Even a joke that was just ordinary would be hilarious. I remember one of the guys is sitting over there, and I was well, doing what I'm doing now, rambling on, and he said, "Formidable," formidable, and Jacques Collet comes up to me and said, "That doesn't mean what it means in English."
Oh.
Well, in French, formidable is like, "Hey, this is great," you know. Whereas in English, that has at least some connotation of being frightening.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
You know?
Huh, interesting.
But no, that me and the bourbon. One night, we'd had a particularly pleasant evening, I think, and somebody got the idea that, well, we'd retire to our room. What we had were more like cells than rooms. I mean, literally, the room I had might have been 6 foot wide and 9 foot long.
Oh.
Rock-walled place, you know. It had a little wash basin in the corner, a little narrow cot type of bed.
Oh.
And incidentally, the humidity there was 0. I mean, it was dry and hot, you know, continuously. So most of us were suffering from some kind of exposure to that.
Yeah.
And at night I would put a wet washcloth over my face, breathe through it.
Oh, wow.
You know? But again, back to this particular night of ebullience, somebody got the idea that we would rearrange the parked automobiles out in front of the hotel. The hotel had a balcony in front of it, up about, raised 4 or 5 steps from the ground level. Balcony is maybe 20 feet deep at the most, maybe 60 feet long, something like that. And at the base of it, there were what parked cars that the Legion used in various, and most of them were what they called deux chevaux, 2-horse, you know, deux chevaux in French. And they were sort of a counterpart of our early small Jeeps, you know, about that size, but just strictly utilitarian vehicles. So we went out there, and there probably was about a dozen of us by this time, and we picked up these deux chevaux and carried them up onto the balcony and just set them side by side. So they had maybe 2 feet in front, 2 feet in back, you know. And, so we ended up with probably 10 or 12 deux chevaux. And then we went off to bed. And in the morning, well, I don't know what the others expected, but I was certainly expecting some kind of something, recognition, you know, of some kind. But as it turned out, there was a lot of activity because the Legionnaires had to come over and lift the deux chevaux off the. They had to do the reverse of what we. But beyond that, no one was saying, "You guys better cut this out" or anything like that. So at least for me, I thought, well, that's nice. We got scot-free on this.
Yeah.
You know, it was a silly thing to do, but let bygones be bygones, right?
Yeah.
That's a French attitude. But that night in the bar, somewhere around 10 o'clock, this French, well, the Legion, the officers were French. The soldiers were polyglot. They were everything. But this officer, Legion officer, comes in. He's got a guy with a machine gun on beside him on each side, and he says, "We're going to take you to bed now." And he took each of us to our cells and locked us in.
Oh!
Yeah, right. It's the best of my mind. That was a bit. I guess I thought we'd learned our lesson,
Yeah.
and we had, I think. You know. The other thing we do is something like, not often, maybe one at the most 2 nights a week. There was a little town near the fort that had just a few buildings in it, mud huts, basically. And the arrangement was that on, I can't remember the specifics of it, but like on odd numbers nights, the Algerian forces could go into this town. On even number night, the French could go in. And on one of the even numbered nights, we went into town, and there was one of the Frenchmen. He was a technician. His name was Charles, and I remember that. And he and I think, established a particular rapport, although during all this time, we never actually spoken. He was reluctant to speak English, but I do remember that he would, we were coming to this little mud hut bar there, and I wish I could remember the name of the town. Maybe it'll come to me. And he was beside me, and his face is beaming, you know, going down there. It was saying, "We're going to have a good time, Joe," you know.
Oh, yeah.
And so we go into this little bar, and it was a bar, and it was also a brothel.
Oh. Oh.
And there was a lady in charge of this establishment, and so as we came into the bar, she came up to us, and Jacques, I think, or one of the Frenchmen, he introduced me to Madame so-and-so, you know. And I didn't know what to say, so the only thing I could think is "Enchanté, Mademoiselle." So I did that, and I kissed her hand. And the bar is lined with legionnaires, and they all burst out roaring with laughter. And she beckoned to me to come over. And she and I sat at a corner in this place, and she brought out a bottle of real brandy. The rotgut that the legionnaires and the French were drinking at this bar was a far different story. But she really responded to the the kiss on the hand. You know?
My goodness.
That was fun. And Charles, he laughed about that too. I guess that's one of the closing stories of that particular episode. We found, after the launch, got off the rocket. It was at least nominally successful. Frankly, I can't remember any of the details about it. Didn't kill anybody, didn't land in Morocco or anything like that. And Columbus Shore, that's right. A town north of where the French fort that we were at, maybe 50 some miles, Columbus Shore. It was then the headquarters of the French Foreign Legion. It was the last, and it was a traditional old fort, big high ceilings. It had pennants and French Foreign Legion mementos all there. So there was a mixture of French military. They were leaving. This was the last flight out of Algeria. And it was really a very touching evening because, you know, the Legion had suffered tremendous losses at Dien Bien Phu in Vietnam, you know, before we were there.
Yeah. And
then in Algeria, they, of course, lost the so-called Battle of Algeria. Incidentally, there's a movie called The Battle of Algeria. Tremendous documentary type movie. Have you ever seen that movie? Yeah. That's worth seeing. Yeah. I think it's a very telling movie about how you deal with try to deal with intractable, with losing situations, you know. But anyway, at this fort, we were leaving in groups because there was an airstrip there. And the planes that were taking us out would accommodate, I don't remember, 20, 30, 40 people. Then the next group, a little while later, another group would go out. And finally, the group that we were on was called out. And I remember this incident very, very poignantly. Charles, the technician I mentioned, came up to me. And for the first time he ever spoke in English to me. And he put his arms around me and said, "Always smiling."
oh.
And to this day, I'm not sure whether he meant "you're always smiling" or he meant keep smiling or be happy or what, you know.
Yeah.
But again, it was a poignant moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So that was pretty much that particular episode. I'll get maybe the later segments to other, at least one other French they called them campaigns. Later we launched a Vernig rocket out of French Guiana, where Devil's Island is in South America. But that's a whole other bunch of stories about that one. But to me, that was one of the best experiences I ever had in my life.
Yeah.
You know, there wasn't a hell of a lot of technical challenge to it, and it worked out okay. And in those days, it was like playing baseball. If you hit 1 out of 3, you were doing pretty good,
Yeah.
you know.
So do we get the...
What?
Do we have to get going on this?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's about it for
Well,
me.
stop?
too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was